Hi folks, I'm going to tell you the story about how I stumbled across a Jesse James pistol, probably the last pistol that he ever wore, and how it was brought to the History Channel and how they proved that it did have Jesse James' signature on the inside of the bloodstained ivory grips. The story starts that I'm a gun collector and I'm a cowboy action shooter. And my claim to fame was that I shot authentic Colts and Winchesters, guns of the time period. When I was cowboy action shooting back in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a few of the boys brought reproduction Smith & Wesson Schofields out there to the shooting range to cowboy action shoot with. Well, I looked at the guns, I liked the way they felt, but I would not shoot a spaghetti gun cowboy action shooting. I wanted to shoot the real McCoy. So I sent a friend of mine that goes to auctions all over the United States. I told him I'm looking for a first model and a second model Smith & Wesson Schofield to cowboy action shoot. I wanted one in good mechanical condition that I could shoot the crap out of and not worry about having to blow my hand off because the guns were made in 1875. A few months later, he called me up and he had found this Smith & Wesson Schofield right here. I went out to his place of business in western Oklahoma. I looked the gun over, I liked it, I bought it. I got home to take it apart to make sure it was mechanically sound because I didn't want to blow my hand off. And I was shocked when I took the ivory grips off. There was blood stains all inside these grips and 5 signatures. The man I'd bought the gun off of while I was looking at it, he told me that this gun was supposed to have been associated with the James gang. He didn't know how, but when he was bidding on it at an auction and he won it, the auctioneer came over and told him this gun's supposed to be associated with the James gang. He didn't know how because they sent the gun to be auctioned off, but they didn't send the provenance with it. And the auctioneer told my friend that if the provenance ever shows up, he'd send it to me. He told me the same thing when I bought it. If the documentation shows up, I'll send it to you. Neither one of us expected anything. I get the gun home, I take these ivory grips off, and I was shocked at the amount of blood that was up inside these guns. I literally had to put the screw on this side of the gun and pry the grip off. The grips were glued to the gun from the blood. And then I had to tap through the other side like this to knock the other grip off. And on closer examination, it looked like it said J. James right there. It's kind of faded out in between. I knew that was blood, but there's 5 signatures on here, and the blood's got one of them covered up so bad you can just barely make it out. Well, I'm not a forensic document examiner, but I got on the internet and I started looking at Frank James's signature and Jesse James's signature. And like I said, I'm not a forensic document examiner, but that was a spot-on signature for Jesse James. The only thing that didn't look quite right was the bottom part of the J. And the bottom part of the J on all 5 signatures is a little bit messed up, but if you take in consideration what Jesse was writing on, he's writing on a piece of ivory that's not very big. There's kerf marks in there from when this ivory was sawed in half, and he ran out of room for the bottom part of the J. But the A-M-E-S is spot on perfect, and I knew that. So for the next 14 years, I'd go out there and hunt on that gentleman's property that I bought the gun from. He'd try to buy the gun from me. He'd offered me twice as much money as I paid him for the gun to get it back. Every time I saw him, he said, "You ready to sell me that Smith & Wesson?" I said, "No, I like the gun. I'm going to shoot the crap out of it." I did not tell him about the blood stains or the signatures. So that's the way it went for 14 years. I've owned this gun for 16 years. the gentleman passed away. About a year after he died, I was talking to a guy that I know that knew him also, and we were talking about guns, because that's what we talk about. And he was asking me if I got the documentation for that Jesse James pistol, and I said, no. What are you talking about? He said, well, he said, a few months after you bought the pistol from him, the auction house sent him some documentation. I said, really? I said, what was in it? I said, you saw it, right? He said, yeah. He said it had a picture of Jesse James, a picture of Frank James, and a picture of Frank and Jesse James. And it had a letter signed by Frank James stating how he had gotten a gun off of Jesse's wife after Jesse had gotten assassinated. And he said, you didn't get that? I said, I didn't know nothing about it. I said, that must be why he was trying to buy the gun back from me for twice what I paid for it. So I confronted another guy. He's the guy that drove him to the auction. This gentleman was elderly. And I said, did you see any documentation for that Jesse James pistol? He said, yes. He said, I was in the store when it showed up. He got a big manila envelope. He opened it up. He looked through it, stuck the stuff back in the envelope, slammed it on the desk and said, damn it, I didn't sell that gun to David for enough money. So like I said, for 14 years, every time we talked to each other, he tried to get this gun back. I never told him about the blood stains or the signatures. I just said, no, I'm going to keep the gun. I'm going to shoot the crap out of it. And I have. To let you know about how serious I am about cowboy action shooting, all my guns are authentic Colts, Winchesters, Merwin and Huberts, and Smith & Wessons. I did not shoot any reproduction guns. I shot a real 1887 lever action with solid brass shotgun shells. I acquired a couple of hundred solid brass shotgun shells, and I reloaded them because this gun's chambered for 2 5/8, not 2 3/4. So I shot brass shotgun shells. I had an assortment of Colt single actions to choose to shoot from, 18 of them to be exact. Colt single actions. I even have a real sheriff's model. These are extremely rare. This made in 1894, and it's legit. It's lettered sheriff's model. Went to Texas. This is my second model Smith & Wesson Schofield. I got to when I shooting this gun, I'd always put a pair in my holster, probably the same manufacturers. And I even got into the Merwin and Huberts. Merwin and Huberts #2 Armies. This is a serial number 12, or assembly number, I've been told, but it's the lowest known serial number in existence. I talked to the Merwin and Hubert president, and this gun's on record under my name as the lowest serial numbered one known. Smith & Wesson #3 Russian. Factory nickeled, factory ivory. Nice gun. I shoot them all, and I shoot them hard and I shoot them fast because that's the way they were intended to be used. The guys out there at the shooting range, they thought I was a lunatic shooting all these old guns. And I even shot real 1866 lever actions. I had an assortment of 2 of these. Now, folks, don't go out there and jerk a barrel off of an 1873 and stick it on here and expect it to work. It won't. It takes a lot of planning to figure this out. But I shot 2 of them, and there was a lot of people out there that never shot a real 1866 before in their life, and a lot of them shot these guns. I had to design my own shell for them. Winchester 1873s, I had my assortment of 28 of them to pick from, to choose, to shoot. So, like I said, I like the old guns and I shot them. But let's get back to the Smith & Wesson first model Schofield that belonged to Jesse. The first thing I did after I found those blood stains and those signatures is I sent a letter to Roy Jenks and some pictures. The Smith & Wesson historian, Mr. Roy Jenks, and I had him letter to the gun. And he said right here on this original Smith & Wesson letter that this gun originally was a military gun. It went to the U.S. Army in 1875. It was a shipment of 3,000. And it also says on here by Mr. Roy Jenks that in 1880, many of the guns were sent to the firm of Scheidler, Hartley, and Graham, and they were nickel-plated and had ivory grips installed on them to fill special orders. And I figure that's what happened to this gun. It got sent to this company, they nickeled it, they put the ivories on it, and then Jesse got his hands on it. It's a known fact that the James gang, the whole gang, preferred Smith & Wesson pistols. They carried some Colts, but their number one gun was the Smith & Wesson because you could reload it on horseback at a full gallop real quick. It automatically kicked the empties out and you can just drop some more in it and you're ready to go back to business. Now, like I was saying, I've owned this gun for a long time. And I was waiting to be retired from the Department of Defense to do something about authenticating this gun. My original plans were to go to Pawn Stars with it because they have a gun expert and they also have a handwriting expert. And then one night I was watching the History Channel on a show called American Unearthed, and they had a little clause at the end of it. It said, if you've got an important historical document, we'd like to know about it. We might put you on TV. So I contacted them, and that's how this gun wound up being on the History Channel on the show called Found. The episode that this gun is in is Season 1, Episode 2, titled Outlaws and Aliens. And the film crew found a handwriting expert since we were filming in Dallas, Texas. Her name was Wendy Carlson. She looked at the gun on camera, and on camera she states that there's a high probability that this is Jesse James's signature. And by contract, I had to wait until after the show had aired in the United States before I could get a copy of this stuff. But it says on here that it's a very high probability that this is Jesse James's signature. And it says on here that she is willing to testify in a court of law that this signature is the same signature as the signature on this picture. This is the most known picture of Jesse James and the most famous signature. There's only 5 signatures of Jesse James, and there's 3 signatures of Theo Howard. And that is one of the reasons why Wendy Carlson wouldn't do a percentage. She said on camera, I don't do percentages to attorneys or judges. And she told me later that everybody's idea of percentages are different than hers, but it's very high probability that this is Jesse James's signature going off of that picture. Now I'm going to reach out there to the TV world. If you're the person that owns this picture, or if you're the person that authenticated this signature, I'd like to talk to you. I would like for you to look at the signatures on these grips and see if you think they're the same. Like I was saying earlier, the History Channel showed this show in August of 2017. The filming about the pistol was done in February of 2016. The contract that I had with the History Channel, or the filming crew, stated I wasn't allowed to go public with this firearm until after it showed on TV in the United States. The show was called Found. It's Season 1, Episode 2, Outlaws and Aliens. And it is showed in approximately 11 different countries. It showed in Canada first. It went to Chile, Peru, Argentina, Germany, Asia. You know, it went around the world before it came to the United States. So I've been patiently waiting for it to air in the United States so I could tell the full story. Committee Films filmed the whole show for the History Channel. They did a wonderful job. But the History Channel edited out a lot of information I thought was critical to the authenticity of this firearm. And that's why I'm doing this video and putting it on YouTube. If you want to watch the original show of Found, Outlaws and Aliens, you can get on YouTube, or you can just get on Google and type in the word found and bonus and look for this pistol. It'll take you to YouTube. Click on that link and you can see a 2 minute and 27-second statement from Wendy Carlson where the History Channel went in there and they'd cut some important information that she had to offer out of the original shooting on TV and posted it on YouTube. You can also watch the original show, but it's pretty difficult to watch it. You got to get underneath it where it says show more and click onto that, and it'll take you to another page, and you got to keep hitting show more until you see a picture of me wearing this big hat standing beside Jesse James's great-grandson, and click on that. And then you got to enter your TV provider and your username and password, and then you can watch the whole show for free. But it's out there. Oh, one thing that the History Channel didn't do, I was told that when we filmed this, that this show would be previewed a couple of weeks ahead of the airing date when it aired on TV. It wasn't. I was called by the film crew and told that the show was going to come on TV on 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night right after Pawn Stars. So a lot of people don't know about the show. They don't know about the show called Found. There was 10 different episodes. And a lot of people don't even know it aired on TV because a lot of it played late at night. And there was no previewing of what the show was going to entertain before it aired on TV. Then the next thing we did was they sent me to a DNA lab in Oklahoma City to get some DNA off of these grips. And I met with a Dr. Brent Cassidy in Oklahoma City, and he scraped some blood off of this, and I did not know the results until after I had to drive to Minnesota and meet Jesse James's great-grandson and results. But he said that the blood stains on these grips were too deteriorated for him to get any DNA from. So I started questioning him. I said, "What do you mean too deteriorated?" And he said, they're just too old. He said, "My form of DNA retrieval only goes back 75 years. He said, "That blood is older than that." And he said, "Since I didn't get any DNA out of that blood," he said, that's more evidence that those signatures or those blood stains haven't been faked or altered. So that was a plus. No DNA, no fresh DNA. The blood stains hadn't been faked or altered. They've been on this gun for a long, long, long time, longer than 75 years. So that's the story. And also, Wendy Carlson, she sent me this letter showing each and every letter that she singled out to give her the conclusion that the same person that authored this signature was the person that authored the signature on these grips. Now, like I said at the beginning, I thought it said J. James. But Wendy pointed out it just says James. The India ink is faded in areas or rubbed off. There's a crack right there and a mainspring rubbed off the letters. That's why I thought it said J. James, but if you get it under a high enough magnification, you can still see where it says the word James all the way across on all 5 signatures. If you have any questions or concerns about this pistol, I would like to talk to you. If you have access to an archaeological DNA lab, that's something Dr. Cassidy also mentioned. I needed to go to a DNA lab that specialized in archaeological DNA recovery. If you have access to that and would like a chance at getting the DNA out of these blood stains, I'd like to hear from you. Maybe you can be the person that identify it. Maybe you can get the credit for Jesse James's DNA. Jesse James's great-grandson, he's still alive. He's 83 years old, but he's willing to donate DNA. He's the closest living link to Jesse James. I talked to him last week. Another thing that the History Channel edited out was some of Jesse James's great-grandson's stories. He said some good stories that only the family would know about. One of the stories was how he knew, the family knew that this pistol was out there somewhere. He didn't know where, but he knew it was out there. He knows that Jesse's wife died penniless. She actually had an auction where she sold off all of Jesse's personal items and even sold off Jesse's dog. And the dog brought $15 at the auction. It was the most expensive item sold. And the good part about it was one less mouth to feed the dog. Her rent was $14 a month, so she could pay a month's rent and have $1 left over. Jesse's dog, the big seller at the auction. Also, I have a copy of the original testimony that Jesse's wife gave to the sheriff immediately after Jesse got killed. It says she was in the kitchen when she heard a pistol shot. She went running in there, and Bob and Charlie Ford had just run out the door. Charlie Ford came back. He said it was an accident. It was an accident. And she said it was an accident done on purpose. And my theory is, this is my theory, that she grabbed this gun and was going to shoot Charlie Ford, and that's how the blood stains got transferred from her hands to these grips. It says on here that when she ran in the room, Jesse was on the floor. He looked like he had signs of life in him. He looked like he wanted to say something, but he couldn't. She started wiping the hole in his head off, and she said the blood was coming out faster and she could wipe it off, so she got saturated in blood. If she grabbed this pistol and was going to shoot somebody, that would be the reason behind this. All this blood on the inside of these grips. But this is her testimony to the sheriff. There are several other important items in here. The sheriff asked how many guns were in the house, and I'm sure this is a misprint, but she said he had 2 pistols, a shotgun, and a revolver. Now, I don't know what the difference between a pistol and a revolver is, but they're the same thing. I think she meant a rifle, or it was a typographical error on the newspaper. I think it's supposed to have been 2 pistols, a shotgun, and a rifle. Bob Ford was also asked the same question. Bob Ford got it right. Bob Ford said, that Jesse owned 145 caliber Colt and 145 caliber Smith & Wesson. He also had 1 breech-loading double-barrel shotgun and 1 Winchester rifle. So Jesse only had 4 guns in the house at the time of his demise. 2 pistols, a Colt, and a Smith & Wesson Schofield, because the Smith & Wesson Schofield was the only Smith & Wesson made in .45 caliber. A Winchester lever-action rifle, and a breech-loading double-barrel shotgun. I believe this is the .45 caliber Smith & Wesson pistol that was in the house when Jesse got assassinated by Bob Ford. Like I was saying earlier, if you're the person that owns this picture, or if you're the person that authenticated this signature, I'd like to talk to you. I would like for you to look at the signatures on these grips and see if you think they're the same.